Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar, zero patience for slow walkers, those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night, have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Welcome to Supernatural Circumstances, the podcast where we take you down the rabbit hole into the fantastic world of the strange, paranormal, and the unknown. I'm Morgan Knudsen. Come along with me on this week's adventure, and we have a returning guest this week who I'm very excited about, Dr. Edward Bassingthwaighte, also known as the Healing Vet, on social media and throughout the veterinary world. Now, if you guys missed the last episode that Dr. Bassingthwaighte was on, I highly encourage you to go back and listen to it. He is a phenomenal individual who applies not only spirituality, but a level of psi using precognition and clairvoyance and all sorts of different techniques to help animals heal, to become their better selves, and to help the people understand how they can turn around and be the best owners, the best partners that they can be with their pets. So if you are an animal lover, this is the episode for you. It's just invaluable information. So let's talk a little bit about first the connection between animals and the paranormal. Now, I know a lot of you guys are probably thinking, I swear my cat saw something in the kitchen and he puffed up and was staring at something for 5 minutes and I couldn't see it. We've all had some sort of connection with our animals, looking at them and looking at their behavior and going, what are you seeing that I'm not seeing? I know for myself, with my little python Galen, he sees a lot of things that I definitely do not see. I've talked a little bit about in the show before, him greeting somebody who seems to come and visit him, who I can't see, who he's very excited about. They have this natural ability to connect in with non-physical. And I think part of that's because they see things in a way that we just can't perceive. They've got extrasensory abilities, such as, for example, with Galen, he can see heat. He's got the ability to taste smell. I mean, there's so many things that he can perceive, just like cats and dogs, that we simply can't. Plus, they're just more in the moment, right? And I think that's a humongous advantage when it comes to being able to perceive some of this non-physical stuff that we just can't. But throughout history and parapsychology research, there's been a huge tie to animals being able to perceive things, and studies being done, such as ones like at Duke University a number of decades ago, where they were actually testing whether or not animals could perceive out-of-body experiences. People that would have out-of-body experiences and say that they were, for example, going into another room, if you put an animal in that room, can they perceive it? And interestingly enough, the study turned out that, yeah, they're seeing something, and it's not perceivable for people. So we'll talk a little bit about that after the show. But if you guys have not delved into what Dr. Bassingthwaighte has to offer, he is a phenomenal man, and we're going to talk a lot about different belief systems today. Some of this might resonate with you, some of it maybe not, but it's up to you to take what you can and make your life with your animals and the animals around you better. So let's get into this. I'm excited. Let's go.
How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team, so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry, so you can walk into any room with every advantage. and they're with you every step of the way, so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next, so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge.
I think you're on mute.
Workday's starting to sound the same.
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit temptationstreats.com to learn more.
Well, it is so good to see you. As I was just mentioning off recording, it's just really, really good to have you back. So thank you so much for doing this today.
You're welcome. Always fun to come and hang out with you and have interesting conversations.
Oh, gosh. And the last episode that we did, there were so many people that were, I think, so deeply connected with what you were saying and some of the messages that we were getting back of people who I think were able to just take what you were saying and really apply it to their relationships with their animals. It was really cool. And we also had a lot of questions about animals seeing things that maybe people aren't quite seeing. And you've been posting quite a bit about this on your Instagram. So I wanted to get into that a little bit today. And the one of the first things I want to ask you is if you can talk a little bit about animals seeing spirits. What's your position on that and why?
Well, let's just back up a little bit and talk about intuitive perception or
Sure.
intuitive empathic type sensory awareness first, because I think helping people understand that a little bit will help them understand how their animals can and do sense and know when non-physical things are around. So intuitive perception is something that I believe is inborn into every human being on the planet. It's just that most humans shut it down to survive the human jungle, to survive social pressures, to for a whole lot of reasons, or because it's too uncomfortable to perceive a whole lot of the violence and trauma and stuff like that exists in the human race at this time. But everyone has what I call an intuitive sensorium, which is a particular spectrum of how they perceive intuitive, non-ordinary reality, non-physical type reality.
Sure.
And everybody wants to be clairvoyant, right? Everyone wants to see visions and see auras and stuff like that. And certainly I know that I've had that affliction in the past. Why can't I see things? Right. It doesn't. It's not important to see things, and trying to be something that you're not can be a big barrier to reawakening and then being comfortable with and applying your intuitive perception in a way that brings a whole lot of beauty and evolution into your life. So you can have visual sensory awareness, an intuitive thing, the clairvoyant type thing. You can have sound, clairaudient type things, and that can either be an internal voice or it can be hearing sounds that other people can't actually hear and that seem to be physical sounds.
Sure.
But a lot of our intuitive perception is more kind of visceral and feeling sense, kinesthetic sense. And certainly for me, that feeling sense is a dominant kind of way that I have intuitive experiences. And the other big one is cognizant, so just direct knowledge that you can have. There's no reason that you could know that thing, but suddenly you know that thing. So and you can get smell and taste too, though they are rarer in humans. I certainly sometimes have had a bad smell in my house, which is not a physical bad smell, it's an energy bad smell that needed to be cleared and removed back to source or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and our animals, mostly, the vast majority of our animals remain connected with this intuitive perceptual awareness. And I believe animals are likely to be more biased towards visceral and maybe smell because they are such olfactory beings. But they would also have visual, and I have definitely seen animals seeing things that the humans can't see. I have no doubt that they absolutely perceive things, perceive non-ordinary reality and non-physical energies and beings with much greater clarity than the average human being.
It's a really, really great explanation, and I'm definitely of the same mind that they're perceiving things that I don't even necessarily know if they're outside of our realm, but definitely our immediate senses, like you were saying, our brains get busy. We tune out whether it's because of stress. We look at experiments that have been done in parapsychology over the years that the people that have the ability to let go and still their minds, they do have better success rates. And it speaks again to, I think, animals being able to be present, be in the moment. And I know you touched before about the fact that often if animals have a sticking point, it's usually us. We're usually the ones that are causing the problem.
Yeah, and our animals are not just passive when it comes to non-physical entities, energies, and things like that. Dogs are an actively protective force in that realm of non-ordinary type stuff. And that's partly because dogs have co-evolved with humans for such a long time, and they're not only physical protectors, they're energetic protectors. So the bark of the domestic dog, just like some people are really good at running fast and some are not, there's a spectrum of how powerful any given individual is in this. But sometimes when a dog's barking at nothing, it's not actually barking at nothing, it's psychically, energetically protecting and chasing away things that might cause harm in a more subtle way. And cats too, Cats in a different way are protective of energy and the space of the home. That's really interesting. What do you notice the biggest difference between them is? Obviously dogs are very, they tend to be very territorial. They function in a pack, where the cat's, typically a little bit more of a loner in some scenarios. What do you see as the difference in behavior? Well, I think the fundamental difference between dogs and cats is that dogs are a social group animal and cats are like kind of lone individual type social animals. Now, cats in the wild and in the cities, feral cats do have occasional gatherings, which is kind of weird and lovely to know, but they do occasionally kind of come together and just hang out a bit, but there's not a whole lot of interaction, whereas dogs in a pack, there's a lot of interaction, and they'll go to sleep in a heap. Well, some of them will, some of them won't. My little fluffy dog here doesn't like anyone coming anywhere near him when he's sleeping, but my dog and my cat sleep in a heap. So I think that really affects the energy, the psycho-spiritual kind of expression of these animals. So cats too are creatures of the night, so they're more comfortable with the darker realms and they're more energetically fluent in that time of darkness and going within and that sort of thing. So I think dogs are, with humans, they're kind of daytime animals, but they're actually crepuscular, which means that they're active at dawn and dusk. That's the natural time for dogs to be active. And dawn and dusk are really interesting, energetic times of transition. So if there are potential for doorways or for energies to come in and out and stuff like that, then often they'll be more active at dawn and dusk. And I got to say, you often hear dogs barking most at dawn and dusk. And I kind of see dogs as this network, protective network, embedded within the human kind of civilization. And you hear one dog bark and they all bark. You feel this whole array of dogs expressing energy through their voice and their consciousness. And often dawn and dusk is when they're most active with that, I find. So there's these different kind of, I've been studying at this thing called Paco School, which is studying with the Quechua people from the deep in the Andes, and their worldview is that everything is living energies. And they don't talk about having good energy or bad energy. All they talk about is that there's light, refined energy, and there's heavy energy, and they all have their place, but you need to know what kind of energies are healthy for you or for given situations at a given time. And I think dogs can be really good at protecting from heavy energies coming into the human space, because they're very protective of what they would perceive as their pack. And that can be intention from other people, whether it's just kind of amateur ill thoughts being intended towards you, someone who's resentful or angry or has got the pips with you, and that can be what you could call professional ill thought, which is more like black magic and ritualized intention of ill intent being directed towards people. Cats, well, they're very protective of their territory from other cats. So you can probably think of cats as being more like, well, this is my place, and you energy thing, no, you're not allowed in here.
Right.
So that's kind of the way I see the difference of it. But I'm just really starting to feel around the edges of this particular topic. I'm not really understanding it as fully as I'd like to.
I totally understand. When I first started years ago with parapsychology, that was the one aspect that really, really fascinated me, was this idea of what some of these negative entities are, whatever, heavy, negative, and whatever you want to call them. And it was something that was really interesting to me, because I wanted to know how people were interacting with them, how the animals were interacting with them, what was triggering what. The behavior side of it was something that really drew me in. I wanted to know the whys and the wherefores. And I sort of came to the conclusion really early that I wasn't going to figure out what it was per se. I think it was, every culture has got a different label for them. And I sort of I kind of put that aside, go ahead.
So we can talk a bit about entities. This is something where I do have deep knowledge, partly because I had what you might call an anti-apprenticeship with what I call a shadow shaman, a guy who was right into black magic. And
really,
it took me some 8 years to clear all the various kind of things that had been inflicted upon me by his influences.
Wow.
So entities, they're a heavy energy, right? They are a non-physical consciousness. They can be trapped and used by black magic practitioners and kind of implanted into people's or animals' energy fields, and then used to kind of as a parasitic type harvesting thing. And you can have, you have wayward souls. So you just have people or animals that have died and not actually transitioned fully. That's one big category of non-physical kind of energies that can, and you can pick them up if you don't have a strong, clear boundary of your energy field. You don't have good spiritual, energetic hygiene. You don't understand all these things. Just like your dog can go to the dog park and pick up fleas, you can go to the supermarket and you can pick up entities and bring them home. And I hardly ever have that happen these days. But no matter how good and strong your spiritual hygiene is, if you come across some kind of non-physical energy that has a really strong karmic resonance with you, then they will still connect, because that karmic resonance will allow a connection to happen. And sometimes I'll suddenly start thinking with words or with kinds of intentions that I know are not mine, and that's a bit of a tell for me that I need to go off and take a moment to ask Source to help me help whatever this is to go back to source where it needs to be. And I had a dog come in a little while ago, a Samoyed who I've been working with for a long time, with reactive aggression towards the other dog in the house due to severe neck pain. But she had suddenly regressed really, really badly and unexpectedly with her reactive aggression. And when they came in, I immediately sensed that there was a big yucky entity, heavy energy attached to that dog, and we did an energy healing process to remove that energy back to source. And the people said it was like we flipped a switch, like they took a different dog home. The behaviour changed back to relative normality, so that the dogs were fine, and this sudden outburst of aggression was gone. So entities can and do influence the emotional and state of consciousness of the being that they hook into, that they connect with, that they become a passenger of. And then you have this whole thing of conscious, malign, power over sorcery type stuff work, where a lot of the entities that these kinds of practitioners use are not working by will. They've been entrapped, and when they're freed, they're often not very, very happy about this. And I work also a lot with a fellow called Jason Parks, who's at thelifeprinciple.com.au, and he works at a very high level, working with all kinds of stuff. And he said, one time he was working with a client and released this energy elemental that had been trapped by a black magic practitioner and used to influence the energy of the person he's working with. Well, that being went back to source, but after it went back to source, it came back and found that practitioner and basically burnt his ability to do psychic work right out of him. So, it all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff happens. There is a massive ecology of non-physical beings, living energies, and what I'm learning with studying with the Karo people too is that, the geography is sacred and alive. The mountains are living beings. The rivers are living beings. All the geographical features have this immense living energy and wisdom. The waters have this different kind of vibration and expression of living energy, and the winds and the stars and the moon and the sun and the cosmos is all alive. And when we can come into right relationship with these living energies, then we can grow and evolve our energy bubble and get stronger and clearer, and our intuitive and healing capacities can get greater and greater.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's funny that you bring up the idea of black magic and ritual. A number of years ago, I was very much on the outskirts in terms of knowledge about anything like that, and it wasn't really my field of study and whatnot. But a very dear friend of mine in the U.S. Had educated me quite nicely about it, because she was a practicing of white magic and was very, very good at it. Very lovely lady, very dear friend of mine. And we had a really interesting incident here at my own place, where there was conflict by someone who we ended up discovering later was was dabbling in this stuff. And the only way that I can explain it is we had an outbreak of mice, and it was unbelievable. Like they were everywhere, and you couldn't get a handle on it. It was the craziest thing. And here, I'm not thinking anything to do with that. I'm thinking, okay, we need an exterminator. And when I told my friend Crystal about this, she says, "Oh no. This is something else. I want you to get into this practice. Here's what you're going to do." And she gave me a ritual spell to protect myself, to stop this. And part of me was just going like, I don't know what to think about this, but I trust her, and I'm gonna go through it anyway, because what else do I have to lose? There's mice everywhere. And I kid you not, within, oh my gosh, 24 hours, we never ever saw another one. It was so interesting. And from that moment on, I was like, okay, this is something, and I need to pay attention to this.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
It was
and
phenomenal. Yeah.
When we talk about the non-physical, non-ordinary realities that Western societies have really, well, mostly Western religions really have tried to exterminate our connection with and our expression of our innate, intuitive kind of nature and spiritual nature, I suppose, because they want to be the spiritual authority rather than having individuals become spiritual authorities. In most religions are like that. And I think our animals can be really beautiful teachers for us in terms of if we realize just how connected they are and we start getting curious and watching them and say, oh, why there's strange behavior going on? Is that strange behavior because of some outside influence that's coming in? Are my animals sensing something that I can't sense? And I think we can just about guarantee that when it comes to sensory awareness, whether it's physical or non-physical, that our animals are way more sensitive than us. So if we start being really connected with and present and observant and curious about our animals, it's like, okay, what can we learn here? You know, what if my animals are picking up on something, if your animals are picking up on something and you suddenly go, well, what if I get really still and quiet and curious and start being sensitive to myself? What can we feel and sense and know that because our animals have alerted it to us, we just can open up to ourselves in a new way, you know?
No, absolutely. I mean, throughout all the different cases that I've taken over the years when I was still doing private clients and things like that with parapsychology, that was the one thing that we saw over and over and over again was the animal's reaction to what was going on and how quickly people were to dismiss it. It was like, oh, my dog looked like it was getting in a fight with something in the kitchen, but well, I just thought my dog was being silly, or I just thought, my cat.
Yeah.
Crazy, and then of course later on, of course, things would escalate, and you're dealing with something that was much greater. I had a interesting experience happen to me. This was, probably about 15 years ago. And not even with a cat or a dog, but my little snake, where he was seeing something and stood up for me. We were playing in the bedroom and he was doing his thing, and he's such a happy little boy. Like nothing bothers him. He's just, it takes so much to stress this little guy out. It's crazy. And he's playing around, and all of a sudden I thought he was looking at me, and he gathered up all his coils and he let out with this hiss, and I'm going, what the heck did I do? And I'm going, oh my God, I'm sorry. What did I do? And I shifted out of the way just a little bit, and he was looking over my shoulder. So I scooped him up, and when I picked him up and I stood up, he looked down at something that was, I guess, probably about 2-3 feet tall. And he just backed up against me like he was going to get whatever this was. It was like, you don't touch my mummy. And I told her whatever it was. I said, you're out of here. You have to go. This is no place for you. And I matched his energy. And within, I would say, 15 to 20 seconds, it must have disappeared. He looked around, like looking for it. Like, I don't know. Okay, I guess it's gone. And he went off and kept playing and never looked back. But something was there. And it was just undeniable. But even here he is. At the time, I think he was only about 5 years old. I mean, he stepped in immediately, and I mean, their senses are just phenomenal. So I mean, you think about how animals are just perceiving the world at such a incredible level that, I mean, we can't even comprehend really. And what they're able to sense, they really are our teachers. And like you were saying, we have to listen.
Yeah. The more that we get curious about our animals, and if you get any kind of strange, unusual behavior, well, it could be because something's going on with a human. And that could be because the humans picked up some kind of non-physical energy that they're not aware of.
Yeah.
It could be because of something that is coming in to the space, whether it's intention directed by some other people, or whether it's some kind of actual kind of heavy non-physical energy being, non-discarnate being that is around in the space. And, you know, I hope no one's out there freaking out about this, because people do get freaked out about this. It's like, oh, entities, oh, scary things. Just know that if you do run into anything and you need help, well, give me a yell. I help people with this kind of stuff all the time. It's that having that experience with the Shadow Shaman guy was uncomfortable, but it taught me a lot of things about how to sense and perceive and clear this kind of stuff. And you can always just call on Source, you know, the infinite wisdom and power of the universe, and ask Source to take whatever it is back to Source. And that's the safest way that there is to work with and clear and heal these kind of influences, because you don't want to interact with them. You don't want to connect with them or do anything with them. You just want Source to come and take them back to Source, and then Source will deal with what they need to go or what needs to happen for their highest good. Because, you know, people get scared about entities, but if you look at it from another perspective, they're all just little pieces of consciousness that are trying to find their way home to God. And I have in the past seen people do terrible things to entities, where they send them off into purgatory for 10,000 years and then banish them and stuff. But if you banish a thing and make it go away, well, it's just going to go off and be a heavy influence somewhere else in the world. So it's better to help it go back to the light, back to Source, back to the heart of creation, whatever you want, however you can kind of wrap your head around it. And then that energy can be either integrated back into the wholeness of all it is, or it can evolve in some way so that it can learn how to be more of itself in a healthy way.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think where sometimes where people lose their way a little bit with this is that they immediately begin to think that they're powerless when something like this is going on. And throughout all the years that I've been doing this, that's the one thing that I have found that is 100% not true, is that we're not powerless, and we can do the emotional work to change our own state of being, change our own state of mind, change our own point of attraction, to start to shift where this can go. I usually use the analogy of a radio dial. It's like if you're tuned in at 6:30 a.m., you're not going to get what's on 97 FM, and it's like, and then so if you can start to shift yourself, then the shifting of yourself ends up really changing what you're perceiving in your environment. And it really all comes back to I think to you and to what to where your state of being is and your emotional state is. And correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I totally agree with that. And I think too, your ability to grow and increase your perception is infinite. Yeah. It's one of the it's like there's so many things in life that you can increase your capacity for. I mean, love is another one, I think, where you can always, your heart space has an infinity of expression that you can grow into. And the thing is, it takes work. If you really want to get to express more and more of your human potential, which is immense and beautiful for everybody, then you've got to get out there and do your meditation work and learn how to understand and sense and perceive and direct and change resonance and frequency of energies in your life and that sort of thing. Now, for me, that's been the most beautiful thing in my life, and it's been a really big part of my recovery from chronic fatigue and Lyme and all these other things, is learning how to understand the true nature of humanity and consciousness, which is energetic and fractal and quantum in nature. You know, we're really quantum supercomputers, humans and our animals, and the more that we can make our way to to knowing ourselves better, the less you have any of these kinds of issues with heavy energies, because once you shift your frequency band to a certain point, these heavy energies don't have any way to access your personal space, your home, your physicality, or the space where your animals inhabit or come in and connect with your animals. So your energetic environment is very much a function of where you're at in your consciousness. And the more you learn and grow about consciousness and energy and these non-ordinary to us, but if you talk to Indigenous people, this is ordinary reality for them, and our very limited reality is very non-ordinary to them.
Yeah, and they often get this with animals. Right back to their stories, even about creatures like Sasquatch and things like that. They really understand this level of connection, and that everything really is integrated within itself. Sort of the idea of panphysicism, where every single thing has an energy and intelligence. There's something there. You posted something really interesting recently on Instagram that totally caught my attention, and you mentioned it a little bit earlier. And I'll just read it for everybody because I think it's so interesting. The unseen, the energy world is real and can impact your pets in good and bad ways. The place where you live, your earth spot, may have open portals that allow non-physical beings to come in and out whenever they like. A bit like leaving your front door open all night. It's important to make sure all your energy doors into your homes are closed and sealed. Now, I've had a couple of interesting things go on in regards to this, but I was wondering if you can touch a little bit on what you mean by these energy doorways, what you think they might be, and how it affects your pets.
Okay, so we have energy centers in our physical bodies, humans, right?
Absolutely.
And there are places in our bodies where different kinds of energies can come in and move out of our consciousness and our being. So this is also true for the earth. And it's not uncommon when I'm doing intuitive sessions with people's animals that I will have information come about the actual earth spot where they're living. And there may be portals or energy doorways that are kind of just hanging out open, and that provides, it's like you lived in a city and you left your front door open. What do you think might happen?
Right.
Anyone could wander in, and they might not be the most salubrious kind of people when they do, right? So and this is another thing that people just don't have any concept that this can even happen. It's so far outside the normal consensus reality that it just doesn't happen for people to think about it. But if you've got portals or that are kind of hanging open in your home, well, you've got an energy doorway where non-physical things can come in and out of it, and that can cause all sorts of interesting upsets on the subtle energy levels. And it affects everyone in the household. So for me, when I'm working energetically, I will seal those. I will seal those portals so that they're not an open, it's a bit like maybe if you had your house and there was a hole in the wall over there, it'd be pretty damn cold in winter and it wouldn't be very comfortable and all the mosquitoes would come in. So it's like energetic renovation, I suppose, of the energies of where you live.
That's a really good way of putting it. Yes, it does make sense, and it's a really great way of putting it. Yeah, I've had some interesting experiences over the last few years with exactly what you're talking about, and in different places. I've had a number of good friends over the years who are, again, Indigenous, who have taken me to various places, even just within the province of Alberta here, and we've had some really incredible things happen. One of them, I remember we were standing on the one side of the road. We kind of got this tip off, I guess, that we should be at this one spot on the road in this sort of back road country area. Nobody's around at a certain time. And we were sitting around waiting for something to happen. And I've told this story on the show before. The four of us saw this bright white light that showed up across. And the first thing we thought, because it started out quite small, we thought somebody was actually coming down the lane with a flashlight or a lantern. It was so intense. Nobody there. This thing expands and expands and expands. It probably lasted, oh gosh, it was at least a couple of minutes. And we saw something. I can't tell you what it was. I don't think anybody else could either, but something step out from the side of the lane, stand in front of it, and we couldn't see any details from it. It was just completely backlit. This light was so bright. And it stopped, it sort of turned to, it saw us, walked towards this bright light was gone. And what was so odd about this, apart from the obvious, it was just really strange, was what we thought we had seen before this thing showed up, which was kind of these bent trees over a lane, and we thought that's what we were looking at. When that portal disappeared, whatever this light was, there was nothing like a lane behind it. It was the strangest thing, but something was there. And we were fascinated. I'd never seen anything like this in my life. So that was my experience with these energies. So yeah, I mean, if you've got thoughts on it, let me know.
Well, who knows? I mean, I don't know that I need to try and decode what's happened for you, but
right.
There is a whole lot of things that can happen like that are experiences of living energies of different kinds, whether they be living energies of what our more European Celtic tradition would call fairies, elementals, earth energies, and or the Kara people would call the Apus and the Pachamamas, the masculine and feminine nature beings, which are embodied in mountains and rivers and lakes and things like that. But I think the really important thing to know is that we can form relationships with them and communicate with them and form not healthy relationships that are mutually beneficial. And when we start to wake up to that, and this is also true of on an energetic level with our own animals, the more that we can connect with their souls and their spirits and their living energy in physical and non-physical ways, then we have immense potential for our relationships with our animals to get so much richer and more beautiful and more empowering for both ends of the leash, so to speak. So everyone's going to have all sorts of kinds of experiences when they come to exploring and growing into what is our natural human birthright of being highly empathic, deeply intuitive, able to perceive and communicate and interact with all kinds of living energies, physical and non-physical living energies. I think that's the salvation of humanity. It's just that the more that we all do this, the better.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think that's the one thing we have so drastically lost, especially over the last 15 years. The ability to, I think, number one, be still with ourselves, have that time of meditation, whatever that looks like for you, whether it be painting, whether it be being with our animals, even just having that exchange and being able to just be still and be quiet, to be able to listen, to be able to instead of being forceful with whatever's going on in the universe, to have that ability to just sit back and allow and listen, and stuff starts to come when I think we're able to do that. And I feel like we've lost that. And I think like we've been talking about, our animals, I think, are a wonderful way of guiding us back there.
Yeah, and I think it's also good to learn some skills on this front, because spiritual hygiene, energetic hygiene, subtle energy perception and direction skills are very, very useful things to have in life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So if people out there are going, oh my gosh, okay, I know my animal is seeing something in my house. I know that can we talk a little bit about maybe how they can either foster that, how maybe that's a beginning connection with something that's positive? Because we've talked a little bit about the dark side, but a lot of the time, I mean, these things are a wonderful positive thing. I know my little Galen has tons of positive interactions.
They are a wonderful positive thing, and you know, Brian Froud's fairy cards are one of my favourite decks, and the energy beings that he has painted into life through his perception are incredibly beautiful. And there's one of them that is very high energy, very mischievous energy, which is good friends with our cat. And we have to put some limitations about how and when he's creating havoc in the house. So there's that. And, you know, I'll tell a story too about a client that I had years ago that had an anxious little dog, and I was going to, you know, doing relaxing touch and energy healing, all that kind of stuff for this little dog to help with anxiety. And then one visit, it turns out she'd been away somewhere and visited something, and she'd come back and she'd brought some kind of energy back with her that was very protective, but also problematic when people were coming to visit, because all these weird phenomena were happening. So what came out of my intuitive connection and understanding of that situation was, okay, we need to make this being a little house at the front door. So we got a little flower pot, turned it upside down, put it on some things so there's a little space underneath, and we gave this being some guidelines about how, you know, when friends were coming, you're not allowed to hassle them.
Right.
But you can be as protective as you like about anyone else. Deliveries are okay, you know, and all the phenomena went away.
Isn't that funny?
So these things have just come up spontaneously as I'm working with people, right? And how I've dealt with it is just to intuitively ask, what's going to be the best thing to help here? How can we help this situation? But that would have been affecting everyone in the house. I mean, the little dog was a little bit more anxious than usual because of all this other stuff going on.
Sure.
But I don't really go looking for these kinds of things either. I'm not sure that that's a healthy thing to do. It's more, okay, I want to grow and evolve, and I will perceive whatever I need to perceive that's guided by spirit, rather than me going, well, let me go and find entities. I'm going to go entity hunting. I don't think that's a very healthy way to do things, you know.
And not needed either. I think, you know, to have these experiences, it's the one thing that I've actually found over the years has repelled it. If you want to really try and find something, as soon as you're trying to find something, you're aware that it's not there, and it sort of projects this energy that, well, that it's not there yet. And what I've found is that it's one of the first things that actually will almost guarantee that you're not going to have an experience. It's the complete opposite. It's sort of the relaxing into it and saying, okay, you know, I would love to have this experience. If you're here, that's lovely. Love to connect with you. If you don't, that's okay too. And that's probably been one of the best techniques that I've had when it's come to connecting with the good things in the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's really interesting, and it's also very non-linear, all of this.
Yeah.
If you do start opening up perceptual capacity and reconnecting with yourself and doing all that kind of stuff, just be aware that you might have to work away at various things for months or years before you suddenly have more stuff open up. Or you might start, it might open up really quickly, and then it might seem to go away.
There's that too.
There is that. It's very unpredictable.
Yeah. My little snake, he's so funny. He has a visitor come semi-regularly, I would say once every 3 weeks or so, and we're not sure who it is. We think it might be my great-great-grandfather popping in. He seems to recognize whoever it is, and he's always got a greeting when he sees somebody he knows in life. He go up and greet them, and when whoever this is shows up, he does the same thing. He's just greeting what looks like mid-space to me, and I've just gotten to the point where I say, oh, you know, Galen, who's that, you know, or they come to visit, And they hang around for a little while, and he's very happy to see them. And after a little bit, they must disappear because he kind of looks around like, oh, okay, well, I guess they're gone and whatnot. But he's always very excited about it. And it's lovely to watch this interaction. It's so magical because whatever he's seeing, whether he sees a person or lights or something that's beautiful, but he's sensing that energy, and just watching him interact with whoever this is, it's comforting, I think, to him and to everybody else.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, isn't it, how these things just have their expression, and there's all these interactions and all these experiences that are weaving into and throughout and around our lives. And I hope everyone who's out there listening just gets a little bit more curious about, okay, there's this physical world, but I think too, if you remember that our physical world is only about 1% actually anything, it's all emptiness really, even though we can touch it and do things with it and all that kind of thing. Our bodies are mostly empty space. And so we're really way more non-physical beings than we are physical if you look at it from a scientific perspective. And maybe that can help us all loosen up to opening up to non-ordinary realities and non-physical things. And often if this is new to you, it can be kind of a shock when suddenly you do have a non-physical perception. You might go, whoa, and shut down again. That's okay. You just go, oh wow, that was cool. I wonder if I can stay a little bit more open next time, is kind of my advice with that. And my other advice that a lot of my students, when I'm working with teaching intuitive perception and energy healing and all that sort of thing, a lot of them will go, nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening, and nothing. And I say, well, what is happening? Oh, yeah, no, I've got this little bit of sensation here, and I had that and that. Oh, so there actually is things happening, isn't there? So, there can be a real thing where people are focusing on what isn't rather than what is. And whenever you do start this kind of thing, most times the experiences at first are subtle. Yeah. And these little subtle impressions, glimpses, are the seeds that if you water them with your appreciation and attention, they'll grow into greater experiences. And the other thing about intuitive perception is it's kind of like dreamlike, and I believe it is a form of dreaming capacity in a lot of ways, intuitive perception. So when you're starting out, it's a good idea to have a journal. If you have experience, you write it down, because otherwise it'll just dissolve and fade out of your memory very quickly a lot of the time.
Absolutely. I keep my journal right by my bed every night. I don't know what I'd do without it. It's just become a habit now. You're just going there, writing down things that I'm appreciative of, like just using it in as many ways as I can, just to connect back in, to remember some of this stuff. Because after a while, I think your brain kind of blurs it all together, and it's nice to be able to actually look back and go, hey, wait a minute, no, this stuff is happening to me. It did happen. This is cool. So one last question before we go, because I know people are going to be wanting to know about this, is if they think that their animal is having trouble because of something non-physical, something that's going on that's outside the realm of what probably a normal vet would diagnose, what would you recommend they do? What are the signs, and then what would you recommend that they do, apart from, of course, giving you a shout?
Well, what are the signs? I mean, it can vary. It's a bit hard to really, I mean, if you get an animal that has a sudden personality change, mm-hmm. that can be a bit of a red flag, because suddenly there may be a passenger whose consciousness is bleeding into the consciousness of the animal. If you've got kind of unusual changes in behaviour, not just personality, but different behaviours that are out of the ordinary. I mean, if you've got an animal that's seeming to having a fight with something in your kitchen, there's probably something going on here, right? Or that there's this sudden, very protective, loud energy against something that you can't seem to see anything, but your animals are suddenly your cat's putting the tail up and fluffing and hissing, or your snake's standing up on their tail and hissing or whatever, then there's a fair chance that there's something going on there. Sometimes chronic illnesses, things like that. I think too, it's certainly if you've got animals that have got chronic refractory problems, there can definitely be kind of more subtle energetic influences tangled up in that. Sometimes it's to do with the human. Often the human will have similar health problems. Sometimes there's karmic bonds, ties, agreements, or restrictions that need to be released. Sometimes animals have intergenerational energetic baggage that needs to be cleared. So there's a whole lot of different kinds of things that can be helpful. What do you do? Well, most people are going to need some help because they don't actually have the intuitive capacity and energy healing awareness to do what's needed. So
Sure.
I'm here to help if you want. I mean, there's lots of other people out there that do similar kind of work. We have courses with whole energy body balance, energy work for animals, where you can learn how to open up your intuitive perception and work with energy and healing and all that kind of thing for your own animals too. So there's lots of people teaching all sorts of things with animals these days, animal communication, energy healing. I mean, I can't really say who I'd recommend there because it's not my jam and I haven't studied with any of them, but there's lots of options and you just need to find what feels right for you and your animals.
Absolutely. Well, I recommend you. And so tell people, absolutely. To me, you just excel in this, and your knowledge base is so incredible. I tell people where they can find you, where they can get a hold of this course. Give us the lowdown.
Yeah, well, come to thehealingvet.com. If you want to book sessions one-on-one with me, that's probably the easiest way to get started with that. wholeenergybodybalance.com is where the modality and all the courses and everything live, and you can look up the Healing Vet on Facebook and Instagram. I'm pretty active there too.
Yeah, and everybody, the videos, everything that he posts is so interesting. It's so full of information about all sorts of subjects in regards to your pets. So please, please, please go subscribe. We're going to have all the links to his course and website. Everything is going to be in the show notes. So please go subscribe. It's so fascinating. I learn something every time I see your post come up. So it's amazing. So thank you so much again for doing this today.
You're welcome. Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show again.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
Are your business expenses playing hide and seek? With Uber for Business, the small spends that slip through the cracks, like rides and meals, go right where you need them. Because it integrates with leading expense platforms, you can say goodbye to surprise costs, missing dollars, or chasing receipts. Everything's track downable. Uber for Business. Make small steps that make a big impact. Learn more at uber.com/small steps.
Walmart Business saves you time, money, and hassle, which means you can focus on what really matters. Like putting the money you save back into what you do, spending more time training your team, filling orders, and finding new clients. Anything and everything, right down to, oh, that's one, choosing the best hold music. Walmart Business. It's the Walmart you love, now for your business. Learn more at business.walmart.com.
Learning through play starts with Lego Duplo. With Lego Duplo, toddlers can develop real-life skills while having fun with colorful bricks made just for them. Large, easy to grip, and safe to explore. When children express themselves with Lego Duplo, they build patience, problem-solving, and empathy. See your child learn perseverance and self-expression with everything they imagine and create. Visit lego.com/preschool to learn more.
Well, that was an absolutely incredible discussion. I know I learned a lot. What about you guys? I always leave a conversation with him with my heart just full. I think there's needs to be more vets like him out there. You know, there's a lot of amazingly good-hearted people that become vets, and I think the more they can understand and learn about themselves, about how they can tune in with animals on this level of extra senses, the better this world is going to be, guys. Like, it really. And what's so neat about this is I think this is a growing movement. I think what we got to experience today with Dr. Bassingthwaighte and what's going to be happening in the animal community, the more we understand that they are the next level rather than something beneath us. They are the next level of consciousness and how they perceive things. The more that we're going to be able to get in touch with this side of ourselves. So I mentioned at the beginning of this show that there was an experiment done by Duke University back in the day, and I want to explain that a little bit because this was so interesting to me. This was actually brought to my attention by a teacher of mine, Dr. Nancy Zingroni, who we've had on the show a couple of years ago, and she used to work there. She sort of cut her teeth back in the day when Duke University was developing their parapsychology programs, which eventually became the Rhine, which is kind of cool. So Nancy, when they were working with animals and out-of-body experiences at the time, what they did was they devised an experiment where they had a person who claimed that they were able to have an out-of-body experience. Lots of people feel like they can do this at will. In one little hut out back, they would put them in this little hut that was isolated so nobody could see what they were doing. And they would have cameras in a second little hut out back. And they would take whatever animal that they were using and they would put them in this little room. And the room would be filled with furniture. So it would have, for example, maybe a table and chairs and a bed and just sort of rudimentary objects, but a little room. And the object was that the person was supposed to project themselves into the room where the animal was. If that makes sense, right? So they would sit there and wait. And the person who was projecting their consciousness there would then later state, okay, I sat in the chair, I maybe laid down on the bed. And they would essentially record their movements. They'd be conscious of where they were in the room. And the researchers would take that information afterwards and look back at where the animal was paying attention. So if they said, well, the first thing I did was go and sit in the chair. Well, what did the animal do? Did they look at the chair or were they not paying attention? And interestingly, what they found was exactly that wherever these people said that they had gone in the room, the animal was paying attention on point to exactly where the person was saying they were going. It was the coolest thing. And this came up because one of the animals that they actually used in these experiments were snakes. And because snakes are so highly perceptive. So that was why the story came up for me, because Nan was like, okay, you know, I got a cool snake story for you to talk about, Sai. So just a little bit of a tale for you. It was really, really, really cool to me. And so these experiments have been going on a long time. And I think a lot of us know, for example, that animals innately sense earthquakes, finding their way home across vast distances, or even detecting illness in their owners. There's stories that have inspired decades of just controlled experiments like the one that I just told you guys about, from the early studies all the way back to the 1930s to lab work today, where they're looking at animal telepathy, precognition, psychokinesis, all sorts of stuff. So the next time you're sitting there with your cat or dog or bird or snake or lizard, whoever your baby is, know that they've got a lot to teach us. And I think people who are really connected with their babies, I mean, we all know this, right? But I think they've got extra gifts that, I mean, we're just tapping into. How cool is this, right? How cool is this? Well, thank you guys so much for joining me on this eerie expedition, dear listeners, even though it wasn't very eerie. And remember, there is no line between the natural and the supernatural. All is consciousness. Until next time, stay curious, friends. Supernatural Circumstances is a co-production of Entity Seeker, Paranormal Research and Teachings, and The 20th Plane. This podcast is a part of the Curious Cast podcast network. You can find out more about me, Morgan Knudsen, and book me for live appearances at entityseeker.ca. You can also email the show at supernaturalcircumstances.com.
Big Brother is back.
Let's freaking go!
This summer, the game gets hotter, the alliances get trickier, and the blind sides, brutal.
Just a roller coaster of backstabbing and craziness.
New house guests, new twists, same epic drama.
Bro, I'm gunning for you. You're my #1 target.
Who can you trust when everyone's watching?
Game on, baby.
Big Brother. New season Thursday, July 10th on Global. Stream on Stack TV.